Welcome, everybody.
Okay, we're live. We're live.
Hard to push this out.
We're live. You're live. Okay.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming to today's Food for Thought session. So we organize Food for Thought sessions on Tuesdays to try and create platforms where we can discuss different topical issues relevant to Zimbabwe. But today is a special Food for Thought where we're going to be talking about the diversity visa lottery. And our Consular Amy is going to be taking us through, and then at the end we'll take questions. So thank you very much for coming and enjoying the program.
Good afternoon. It's good to see some faces I know well and some faces that I don't know. As was mentioned, my name is Amy Diaz, and I am the consul here in US Embassy Harare. And I'm here to talk to you today about probably my favorite program that we run in the consular section. And the reason I love this program is this gives every Zimbabwean I know almost the chance to come, live, and work in the United States legally. So how many of you, just by a show of hands, have heard about our diversity visa program before? Okay, a few of you. So what do you know so far about the diversity visa program? What have you heard? I like to talk about the myths of the program first before we talk about how you apply. What can you tell me that you've heard? Yes.
Oh, okay.
Lady in the pretty blue shirt.
Okay, what I've heard is that it's a draw where I entered last year, so I had an opportunity to enter my details, my family's details, and then I think it's a draw where the US government then chooses based on points.
So it is a lottery, and you do enter, and you do need to enter all of your information and family as you suggested. What else have you heard about the diversity visas? Anyone? So those of you who've come here today, you've heard that it's a program that allows you to apply and work in the United States, correct? Okay. Let's go a little bit into it. As many of you know, the history of immigration in the United States is large and varied. And for many, many years, we did immigration only based on family ties. That means that you could only immigrate to the United States if you had a mother or a father or a brother or a sister or a child that petitioned for you. And that's still true. That's also how many Zimbabweans today immigrate to the United States, is through their families petitioning for them. But what if you don't have a family member who lives in the United States and you still want to go and live and work in the United States? There is another opportunity for you to do so. So our Congress in the 1990s came up with a program to have countries that are historically underrepresented in the United States have a program where they can apply for a lottery and win the chance to come, live, and permanently work in the United States. Now, when we say historically underrepresented, what we're talking about are countries that have citizens of less than 50,000 a year moving to the United States. So there's lots of countries in the world where we have many more immigrants coming every year through family petitions. Some of those countries will make sense to you. Countries like Mexico, which is the neighbor of the United States. Some of those countries are like the Philippines because of our long military history with the Philippines. So we have lots of those citizens coming to our country. And our Congress looked at our immigration patterns and thought we really should have more diversity in who's coming to the United States. So Zimbabwe is one of the lucky countries that qualifies every year because we still consider Zimbabweans to be historically underrepresented in the United States. So my goal for you here today is to inspire you to apply for this program. There are very few lotteries in the world where you can apply at absolutely no cost, and this is one of them. This is your chance to live and work in the United States for absolutely free. So with that, let me run through my slides, and then I'd like to open it up to our audience to ask questions or concerns that you've heard about the diversity visa program, so that at the end of this presentation today, I've convinced you all to use this as a way to come live in the United States if you're interested in immigrating to my country. So with that, let's start our next slide. So diversity visa runs through October 2nd through November 5th, so we're reaching its deadline quickly, which is why we wanted to have you here today to kind of run through the requirements. Next slide. So let's talk about the facts. And these are really key things to remember if you want to have a successful application. The The first is entering more than once will disqualify you. Unlike other lotteries where you can buy multiple tickets and you have a better chance of winning, it's the exact opposite with the diversity visa. So the most important thing to remember here today is only fill it out once. The other thing I'd like you to take away is that you have to fill out your entire application completely. This is not the time to leave off your children or your husband because you're mad at him or anyone else that it makes up your household. If you don't list them on your application, you can be rejected at your interview for incomplete information, even though you were selected in the lottery. The next thing I'd like you to do, can we go back for a second? I want you to make sure that you follow all the instructions with your submission. One of the things that I hear a lot from applicants is I applied and I never got picked. I've been applying for years and years. Sometimes when we look at those cases, what we've seen is that applicants were disqualified because they didn't follow the instructions online. So take the time when you're filling out the application to read every single point and answer every single question. Next slide. So, I've told you the diversity visa lottery is 100% free. What does that mean? That means you don't pay for anything until you are selected by the US government and you come to the consulate to have an interview with me or one of the other vice consuls. Then we will charge you and you will pay for a visit to the panel physicians before your interview to make sure you have all of the health requirements we require to go to the United States. Typically that's your vaccines and to make sure you don't have active tuberculosis. The other thing I'd like to mention is that you can only check whether you've been picked by the visa lottery if you go online and check your entry status. You're not going to get confirmation from us. You're not going to be able to call up the consular section and say, hey Amy, did I get picked this year? I won't know. Only you can check it, and you'll find out between May and September. So it's really important that when you do your application, you print out your confirmation and you remember the email address that you used. It will also ask you for your name and your date of birth. With those three identifying factors, you can check on after May 7th this year to see if you qualified, and you need to continue to check up until September. What makes me crazy in this process is, unfortunately, we have a lot of unscrupulous people selling the fact that you can apply through them and they will get you a visa, the diversity visa lottery. It is 100% not true. You are just giving away your money. This is truly a random process. There isn't even points when they go through your application. They look through your application to make sure it is full and complete and that you have answered every question. As long as you have done that and you've only entered once, you will automatically be entered into the drawing. Paying a vendor to help you will not get you any closer. Unfortunately, there's even websites from the United States that offer to help you fill out this information, and all they are doing is taking your information and filling it into a worksheet for you. So please don't pay $100 for this. It's 100% free. It should remain that way, and we need your help by not going to vendors and asking them to fill in your information and paying them $100 to do so. The diversity visa application is designed to be easy. It's as easy as filling out an application for a visa through the consular section. Starting May 7th, you can go back and you can check your entry status by those three combinations that I mentioned to you. It's going to be available at www.dvlottery.state.gov. You must keep your confirmation until September 30th, 2021. Why do you have to keep it this long? As people are disqualified from the program, so they go through interviews through the consuls, and the consulars or vice consuls determine that they have a health issue that needs to be addressed and can't be addressed before the lottery expires, or maybe they haven't listed everyone on their family application. So one of the things that will disqualify you is to get married after you submit a diversity visa lottery and then come with a new spouse. Whoever is listed on your family application at the time of your application is who we expect to see at the interview. So that's really important as well. This is not the time to gain a third daughter or a fourth son. We will be checking. This is the time to include all of your family from the beginning. And when we say family, we also are talking about people you either have legal custody to or are your biological children or your actual spouses. You can't bring your sister over on this program. You can't bring your mom over on this program. So really listen to the watch the application and follow all the instructions. I think last slide. We're done. So those are kind of the quick and dirty way of how you fill out a diversity visa application. I'd now kind of like to open it up to the group and have anyone ask me questions, Please, Kathy.
Amy, I want to ask, is it true that you have to be legally married, like you have to have a marriage certificate for you to qualify for this?
We will ask proof for marriage. So here in Zimbabwe, it's a little bit more complicated because you also often have customarily married. So if you are customarily married and list that on the application, we will go through an interview with your family member, but we would want to see them listed on the application. And if you were to be customarily married and then be married at a later date, and you could show that you were already customarily married at the time of your application, and then you had a court wedding after that fact, that wouldn't be a disqualification, but it's important to list that beforehand. This isn't the time to list your fiance if you're not married to your fiance yet. If you're single, you're still single at the time of the application, fill it out that way. If things change in the future, say that you've met the love of your life the day after you submit your application, and you're like, oh no, we're gonna be separated forever. That's not true. You will still have a chance to go to the United States as a single person, and if this still turns out to be the love of your life, once you are a legal permanent resident, you have the right to petition. It takes a little while longer, but that is your right. And once you're an American citizen, you also have the right to petition. So this isn't the end of the great love story, it's probably just a little bit more time. But what I would really say is it's really important to be 100% truthful with your application from the start. Please.
Say I'm pregnant at the time I do my application and I'm successful, so obviously my kids will be considered, right?
Right. If you are pregnant at the time of your application, you can't list your child, and we understand that. But we are looking at all these things because unfortunately we have fraud in the program. And it kind of breaks my heart to see fraudulent applications because this is a really great program that no other country in the world really offers. We are offering you the chance to come and live and work in our country based solely on your national identity, your national citizenship. And that's because we want diversity in the United States. So we've looked at all these countries around the world and we said, yes, Zimbabwe is not represented enough and we should have Zimbabweans here.
So my last question is,
These are great questions. No, keep coming.
So when I migrate to the US, how long does it take for me to be a citizen? Do I go as this lottery program?
Right.
Does it mean that I have a permanent res card or I'm now a citizen?
So when you come into the United States, initially you're going to be given an employment authorization card pretty quickly upon arrival. And that allows you to apply for jobs and shows anyone who would ask you about your legal status in the United States that you are legally in the United States. A few months after that, you'll receive your LPR card, or what's called the green card, and that's your legal permanent resident card. And that's what you would carry around for the next probably 7 years. You can start the process of applying for citizenship at 5 years, and you're going to go through a test with our immigration officials. You're going to fill out paperwork, you're going to pay a fee, and then when your time is scheduled and you've gone through all of that, they'll schedule a time to go through your citizenship exam, and then you will take the oath of citizenship. For most people, it's about a 7-year journey. But you'll have your legal permanent resident card, and after 5 years, you can begin the process for applying for citizenship.
And are there limits that I can't leave the United States within those 7 years or 5 years?
No, once you have a legal permanent resident card, you can leave the United States, and most legal permanent residents do in fact come back and forth with Zimbabwe, but you have to primarily live in the United States. So the test is how many months a year are you spending in the United States. You can't split 6 months in the United States and 6 months in Zimbabwe. That's not primarily living in the United States. You have to spend the majority of the year in the United States. Once you're an American citizen, you have the right to determine how much time you spend in any country of your choice. So it's only when you're a legal permanent resident. Please.
How many slots are open per season? Like how many people do qualify for the lottery?
Sure, so we pick up to 50,000 applicants completely from all of the countries in the world that are historically underrepresented. So that's a year that are open. Now, it doesn't mean that all of those applicants chosen will necessarily come to the United States. What does that mean? That means that we may have people who are chosen who don't qualify during their interviews. So we didn't really talk about what are the basic requirements for a diversity visa. So diversity visa looks at whether you have the educational requirements. In Zimbabwean's case, that is 5 passing O-levels, and 2 of those 5 O-levels have to be in English and mathematics. Or you can have required technical skills. So if you are a welder, or if you have some other very specialized skills, and there's a whole long list, so I'm not going to get into this too much because it's on our Department of Labor website that will give you qualifying professions. You can also qualify through that way. So once you have those things, if you have those requisite skills or you have the requisite education, you also have to have the health ability to go to the United States. And I talked about this a little bit before. You can't have active tuberculosis. You can't have a medical condition that we think would make you a public charge in the United States. That is a legal definition, and that means that when you first come to the United States on a diversity visa or on any kind of immigrant visa, you are not eligible to use public resources. That means you can't use our food welfare programs or health aid or anything that the state or government would pay for. You're expected to be able to pay for yourself when you immigrate into the United States. So when you come to an interview, we're looking for your ability to support yourself in the United States. So we're going to look at, do you have the requisite grades? Do you have the requisite employment that you could find a job in the United States? Or do you have a sponsor who can help you while you're finding a job in the United States? And how is your health? A lot of time now, a new requirement that's coming out is that everyone coming into the United States will need to have health insurance. And so our next class of diversity visa applicants will likely be asked to have proof of health insurance before they enter the United States. This is a new regulation that's just coming out, so I'm not entirely sure how it will be applied in the 2021 diversity visa lottery, but we anticipate it will be applied. And again, these are not onerous hurdles. It's easy to find health insurance in the United States and be able to sign up that way before you enter in. I think I saw a question over here, please.
If I'm married and we both apply, is that considered a double entry, double application?
No, you can each apply on your own and list all of your family members, and that's not a duplicate entry.
And do we all need to have passports by the time of application?
Yes.
Same kids and everything?
By the time of application, we can't give you a visa unless you each have a passport.
All the
Everyone,
family members?
all the family members, yes. Please.
On the issue of the passport, let's say I apply and then my passport is expiring the following year.
That's okay. You can get a new passport. You're going to enter with the passport app. Even on, and in the United States, we have a program where we say, call a friend when you're unsure about something. So let me take this moment to introduce Lizzie Zambu. Lizzie, I'm going to put you on the spot here for a second. Lizzie is our immigrant visa assistant. Come on up here, Lizzie. Lizzie, correct me if I'm wrong, but they don't need a passport number to enter the application now. They only need it when they come to us for the visa.
They need a passport number to
Okay.
enter the application, but the system will not allow them to go to the next question without entering the passport
And
number.
this is why I called a friend. So if you have a passport that's going to expire in a year, you can use the old passport now. And then when you come to us with your new passport, we will adjust it then, and that's not a problem. Please.
Yeah, you mentioned that spouses may apply separately.
Yes.
Do you have to mention your spouse's name on your application?
Yes, you do. You have to list your complete family on your application. So any minor children, your spouse would all need to be listed. And what that does is it gives you 2 shots at the lottery. Your spouse has entered an application and you have entered an application. Please.
Let's say you win the lottery. Are there any special perks that are extended to the applicant to make the transition into the United States easy?
Nothing. Nothing. You will have to go to the United States like every other immigrant before. And this is where it becomes really important that if you have a successful application, that you're either thinking about employment in the United States or you're thinking about family and friends in the United States that are willing to be sponsors for you when you enter. It can be a tough adjustment, and we want you to be prepared for that. And that's why now we're asking for applicants to think about health insurance and to really think about how they're going to support themselves in the first couple of years, because you won't be entitled to public resources. And by public resources, we define that as food stamps, we define that as free medical care, not 100%, but in a lot of settings depending on what you're using, and any kind of free services that you aren't paying for. There are some exceptions to that list, but you should be prepared if you're entering the United States that you will be able to take care of yourself and find employment.
So during the interview, do you look at if someone has the funds? So you may So is there like an amount that you can save, say, oh, your sponsor
Right.
needs to give you this much, or you need to have this
Your
much?
sponsor doesn't have to give you a certain amount of money, but they have to make a certain threshold of money. And we have poverty tables for each of the states and counties, and you can go online to see that, and we have it by family of 4, so depending on their family size and where they live, we would determine if they have enough funds that they would actually be able to sponsor you. Anything else? Please.
Thank you. Is it possible for you to have a student visa at the same time have a diversity?
Absolutely. In fact, I met a couple of successful students who were in the United States studying who actually applied for diversity visas, and that's how they continue to stay in the United States through graduation and afterwards. So absolutely. You also don't have to be 18 years old to enter. So as long as you have your O-levels completed by 2021 and you have the requisite 5 passing grades, you would be eligible. Please.
Do you have any statistics on the numbers of Zimbabweans who have successfully?
We track numbers every year, and what I will tell you is this year our numbers were lower than in previous years, and not because I think less Zimbabweans were picked, but more Zimbabweans had issues either with their applications or being able to show that they wouldn't become a public charge, or actually decided in the end that they didn't want to go forward, or alternatively didn't check back on the website to see that they were selected. So our numbers vary every year, but I will tell you that hundreds of Zimbabweans have entered this, have successfully received diversity visas over the past decade alone, and that they're good. It's a good chance, and when you consider that you don't have to pay anything for it, you really have nothing to lose by spending the time to fill out the application and post it online. Any other questions? Lizzie, what are the errors that you see with applicants?
Mostly they don't include their family members, or they forget also to enter the spouse. So at the time of the interview, they'll bring a marriage certificate, but they would have forgotten to state the spouse and the children.
Okay, so we go back to my first recommendation. Even if you're mad at your spouse, enter them on the application. Because by the time of the interview, you might feel differently. So, and your children, that goes the same with your children, and put them down so that they can qualify. One of the things I see as an interviewer is applicants needing to take more time to consider what they would do in the United States. So if your business here is you're a small farmer and you're doing kind of more subsistence farming and you have your O-levels, you absolutely should apply and qualify, but recognize that subsistence farming isn't going to probably be your primary occupation in the United States. So you're going to need to think more about what it is you can do. I've had some applicants tell me, I'm going to do truck driving, cross country. It's a very great, high-paying field in the United States, but if you haven't done it here and you don't have a driver's license, it's going to be hard for me or another consul to believe that you're going to be able to do it in the United States. So think through your plans. Many of you have worked in a professional setting. I see a number of local staff from the embassy who have really transferable work skills. So I worry less about what you will do because you already have office administrative skills and know what you would be able to look for in jobs in the United States. But if you haven't worked, or if you haven't worked in fields that are transferable to the United States, you need to think it through a little bit more. I had one applicant tell me that he was going to go to college, and I thought that was great, but he hadn't been accepted to any colleges yet, and he didn't have the money for college yet. He actually went through our educational advising program and quickly found some schools that were willing to accept him. And he looked at trade schools and found some funding to do it, so he was able to put together a plan that allowed him to convince us that he would have a way to support himself in the United States. But it took a little bit more thought and effort and some due diligence on his part to create that plan so that when he got to the United States, he really would have a way to push forward and find employment. Please.
Confirm starting point is to go to the website and get the application form.
Yes.
And that has to be done by the 5th of November.
Yes, you have to be everything completed by November 5th. So now is the time. You know, I would like to see you all leave from here and go to internet cafes or home computers and fill out the application and take advantage of it. This year we had our oldest DV winner to date. We had someone who was 66 years old who was a retired nurse, who was going to the United States. So obviously has a profession, had really strong family support and an affidavit of support. And we were thrilled to see her take advantage of this program. So there, you know, the ages range and everyone's story is different. And the point is we want it to be different. We want it to be a diverse group of Zimbabweans coming to the United States. But do think about, you know, is your health good enough? Will you be able to get health insurance? Will you be able to find some type of sponsor or employment before you arrive? Or will you have a plan to support yourself that you can show that you won't become a public charge in the future? And those will be the things that we're determining at the interview. Any other questions? Please.
So the system keeps timing people out. Is there a trick to it, or you just have to keep trying?
I don't know a trick. Do you know any tricks other than to keep trying? No. You know, unfortunately, I think sometimes with electricity here and the power going in and out, and the bandwidth being slow sometimes, it is a frustrating process. But stick to it, and if you kind of go into the internet later at night, I find that bandwidth is better, and that might be one of the solutions I'd recommend, is doing it later at night when there's more bandwidth.
So just clarification, with a 5-month-old baby with no passport, or I should forget?
No, a 5-month-old baby with no passport. I don't know a workaround for that, do you?
At the time of application, only the principal applicant has to submit passport details.
So it's, the children don't matter. So that's what I thought, but I think that's where we were confusing our answer. So do you understand that? So the principal applicant has to have the passport number. The child doesn't. Okay, so your 5-month-old child lists the name, but you have to be able to list the names and dates of birth for all of your family members. And then the passports you don't, but you as the principal applicant would have to do it. If your wife is the principal applicant, she would need to have the passport number. And then by the time they interview, the children would need to have passports. Okay.
No, it's
When it comes to family, obviously it's the immediate family that's listed, but when if say some of your kids have reached 18, that age of majority, they are now an individual, obviously they can't be included in their parents' application.
Children, is it unmarried children up to the age of 21 can be included in the application?
Yes.
So no, they're not. You're not done at 18 with us, but by 21, and you also have to. Your children still have to be single. If they're married, you wouldn't be able to list them and bring them to the United States. Please.
Please clarify for me. So you said we can start checking from May 7th to September 30th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I go on May 7th and my name is not there, does it mean if I go in October?
Yes, you may be.
August,
You may be selected again because you're going to be selected. Some people will be disqualified through their interviews. Some people will be disqualified because they find more than one entry, and that can disqualify you at the later date, which is why they ask you to keep checking back. New entry winners are loaded on the website up until September 30th.
Okay, so do they do it? How often do they load new?
That I don't know. Some of this is determined by the number. So they're watching how many numbers they've given out because they also don't want to pick too many applicants because once they hit the magic number, that's it, we're done. And that's why when you do a diversity visa, as soon as we know and you've notified the embassy, we're going to be scheduling your interview as quickly as we can because every year there are some selectees who don't get their numbers because the numbers run out before they have their interview. So here in Zimbabwe, one of your big advantages is that we are a smaller consular section and we have less diversity visa applicants, so we prioritize those visas to make sure we don't run out of numbers. We try really hard every year to make sure we have all those interviews scheduled. We did not run out of numbers this year, and that was a credit to Lizzie in making sure that we were well organized with our interviews.
So is there a way of them, will they remove you if you don't get to check your name before September 30th?
No, you're in the system, and after September 30th, the deadline is passed. So that's why you want to know, but you really want to be checking a lot because the earlier you get your interview, Remember, it's not just an interview, you also have to do your medicals. So you'll have to do your medicals before you come for your interview, and that all takes time. So you really want to be picked earlier and checking to make sure that you were picked, and as soon as you know, working towards that appointment date with us and your medicals. Please.
What would be your advice for someone who is in college now, but interested in going to the States for masters, and then probably staying there?
Well, I think there's several visas that would apply. It's not just a diversity visa, but if you knew someone who wanted to go and do their graduate degree in the United States, a diversity visa is one way to go to the United States, and you could study on that visa. We also have student visas, which you would also qualify for if you were accepted into a graduate institution in the United States and you have the funds to pay for it. I see an incredible amount of very talented Zimbabwean students going each year to the United States. Many of them have full scholarships, half of them have partial scholarships, and I would say about a quarter are paying completely themselves. And what we look at for students is a long list of criteria, but we look at credible students. We look at students who have the ability to succeed in a university setting. With graduate students, once you have finished your undergraduate, if a graduate program in the United States has accepted you, usually they are giving you some type of funding, typically in the United States, not 100%, but typically you're getting some kind of funding to do it. So if you knew a graduate students, I think the diversity visa would work, but I also think applying for a student visa would also work. Any other questions, please?
Thank you. What if you have been denied a student visa before? What are the chances of being successful?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I was waiting for someone to bring it up. So the fact that you've previously been denied a visa before, unless it was for lying, does not impact your diversity visa application. Why do I say that? If you lie about a material fact and you receive a permanent ineligibility, then that would bar you from a diversity visa. But if you were not granted a visa because the consul didn't think, or the vice consul didn't think you met the qualifications for that visa class, that doesn't matter. A diversity visa is a diversity visa on its own merits. And what we're going to be looking at is whether you have the academic qualifications or whether you have the skill set qualifications. So you have one of the preferred skill sets that we're looking for in the United States. Like I mentioned, like a welder is one of those skill sets. If you have one of those and you don't have any serious health issues and you can get health insurance before you go and find some kind of sponsor or employment, that's all we're looking for. It doesn't matter that you didn't qualify for the other visa class. Yes?
So when you were mentioning about listing a sponsor, can you list that same sponsor?
From your B1, B2 application, yes, you can.
But that sponsor was the reason why we have been
Right,
denied
but
the visa before.
so we have many different reasons why we might refuse a visa. Our most common is something called 214B, which means we believe you're an intending immigrant. And so if you have a history of family immigration and you don't have a lot of international travel and you don't have a high salary, we're probably going to think you're an intending immigrant, particularly when you have the family immigration. But for a diversity visa, family immigration actually helps you because you have a strong sponsor in the United States who can help and support you. So that's why if you were denied a visa for tourism purposes, it doesn't matter with the diversity visa. And this is one of the reasons why I like the program so much. It's a legal way for people to immigrate to the United States. So a lot of applicants they might have to say no to on the line for tourism purposes, I can see on the diversity visa line and say yes to. So don't let a previous visa refusal, unless you were given a permanent ineligibility, and you would know, we give you a sheet when that happens, deter you.
Keep making reference to health insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You have to get that before you leave, yeah?
Yes, and there's lots of insurance companies in the United States, and now that this is a new requirement, there will be even more insurance companies that are offering to international clientele to choose from. So as you get closer to the date of your appointment, that's when I would look for the health insurance and see what's available. Also, if you have family in the States and they're close enough family, a lot of times they can put you on their family health insurance plan. So everyone's situation is going to be different, But I've seen with a lot of parents who go to join children who are already in the United States on diversity visas, that they're often able to add their parents to their health insurance.
And employment?
Employment, it kind of depends. So here's another difference that we see. If you are older, and there is not an age cap on a diversity visa, there's no limit to how old you can be when you apply, and you have children who are already living there who are committed to taking care of you, and you don't have serious health issues, we may not be looking as much at employment because we know you have a way to be taken care of in the United States. So each case is different, but I wanted to talk about in general things what we're looking for. So in general, we're looking to make sure you have the academic background or the skill set to be able to work in the United States. We're looking at your health to make sure you're in good enough health that you won't have any serious health conditions that would need to be addressed in the United States. We're looking at your ability to support yourself there or to be supported by family if you are of an age that you're already past retirement. If you're 20 years old, you're going to need to be able to work in the United States because even if you have a parent there, they're probably going to predecease you. So we're going to look for you to have some way of supporting yourself for the rest of your life in the United States. If you are someone who's already retired joining children, we're probably going to be less concerned about that and more focused on can your children support you. Please.
Yes, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes, I've got two questions.
Okay.
Okay, the first one I want to ask, am I going to be eligible for the diversity visa if I get a scholarship, let's say next year, to study in a different country, maybe for 2 years or 3 years? Am I going to be eligible?
Yes,
to get
because
the diversity?
your eligibility isn't based on your residence at the time of day, it's based on your citizenship. So, for example, if you're French living in Zimbabwe, you can't apply for a diversity visa because your nationality is French and you don't meet the historically underrepresented category in the United States. So you can go and live and work and study in another country and still apply for a diversity visa.
So that answers my second question. So it's fine.
Good luck to you. Anyone else? How many of you think you will apply after listening to the requirements? I want to apply. No. So I wish you all the best luck. I hope each and every one of you here today and in watching at home gets chosen. And what I will commit to you as the consul is we will try and expedite those appointments as quickly as we can to make sure that every number is used. We have excellent panel physicians here who also will expedite your appointments. We really want to see more Zimbabweans take advantage of this program and come and live in my beautiful country. I've had the opportunity to live in Zimbabwe for almost 5 years, and it is a stunning country. It is just beautiful people, beautiful landscapes, and just an incredible experience. And I would like to see more Zimbabweans have a chance to live in my country legally, and this is a great program to do so. So I wish you all the best of luck. If you have any questions, you can email us at consularharare@state.gov. But otherwise, I would really look at our website, www.dvlottery@state.gov, for any questions you still have. They have a frequently asked questions on the website, and you can link there as well. Again, that address is www.dvstatelottery.gov. Thank you so much for joining us today.